2 days after my grandfather's funeral, my parents drove my grandmother to a nursing home and called it practical. While I stood there holding the sealed envelope Grandpa gave me 10 months earlier, inside wasn't just a letter, it was a legal bomb that would destroy their entire plan. My name is Pamela Perez. I'm 32 years old. My father said, "She's better off with professionals than with us." My grandmother's voice broke when she asked me, "Have I been such a burden?" I held her hand in that sterile lobby while my 6-year-old daughter stood beside me, the same little girl who'd slept in our den for 2 years so Grandma could have a real room. That's when I broke the seal. They thought Grandpa had left behind grief. He'd actually left behind instructions. If you've ever been the one who actually showed up for family while everyone else disappeared, subscribe right now and comment, "I showed up from your city." I need to tell you how we got here. Not because I want sympathy, because I want you to understand what practical really means when wealthy people say it. My husband Nathan is an electrician. I teach second grade at Riverside Elementary. Together, we make about $105,000 a year, which sounds okay until you remember we live in California. We rent a 1,200 square foot tract house in Riverside. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, beige walls, a backyard barely big enough for Sophie's plastic slide. It's cramped. It's loud. The dishwasher broke last spring and we still haven't replaced it because $400 matters in our house. But we made it work. When my grandfather's health started declining in mid-2023, my grandmother couldn't manage alone. They'd lived in their own house for 40 years, but Grandpa needed more help than she could give. Someone had to step up. My father, Vincent, owns Perez Brothers Construction. Revenue last year was $3.2 million. My mother, Patricia, runs a boutique in one of Riverside's upscale plazas. They live in a 4-bedroom house with a 3-car garage and a pool they never use. My sister Vanessa married an investment banker named Julian. They bought a 3,500 square foot house in Newport Beach, gated community, ocean breeze, 3 empty guest bedrooms, 50 miles from where my grandparents needed help. About an hour's drive on a good day. None of them offered. So in June of 2023, my grandparents moved into our cramped house. Sophie gave up her room without hesitation. She was 4 years old. Nathan moved her bed into the den, strung up some curtains for privacy, stuck glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling so she'd feel special instead of displaced. Sophie looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Grandma needs the big bed more than me, Mommy. I'm small. I fit in the den." My 6-year-old understood what my wealthy parents couldn't. She slept under those stars for 2 years. Never complained once. Nathan installed grab bars in the bathroom. Cost us $240 we didn't really have. He bought a shower chair for $85. Every morning before work, he'd help Grandpa to the bathroom, make sure he took his medications, get him settled in his recliner. I'd come home from school, help Grandma with dinner, manage doctor's appointments, handle insurance calls, organize pill boxes. One night, after a particularly hard day, Nathan found me crying in the kitchen. He just hugged me and said, "We'll make space again. We always do." For 2 years, we were the only ones who showed up. My father visited maybe once a month, always on his way somewhere else. My mother would bring a casserole, stay 45 minutes, compliment how well we were managing. Vanessa came for Grandpa's birthday and Christmas. Both times she left after an hour, citing traffic back to Newport Beach. Last Thanksgiving, 2024, a year before everything fell apart, my parents came to dinner at our house. Patricia brought wine and her opinions. "Pamela, sweetheart," she said, watching me help Grandma to the table. "You're doing more than your share. No one expects you to be a saint." "I'm not being a saint, Mom," I said. "I'm being a granddaughter." My grandfather heard that exchange. I saw his face across the table. He didn't say anything, but his eyes held something I didn't understand then. Recognition, maybe. Or preparation. 2 weeks later, Vincent brought up senior living options, showed me a glossy brochure for Meadowbrook Care Center. Professional staff, he said, around-the-clock medical support, activities, and community. Just something to think about, he said, for when things get harder. I told him we were fine, but my grandfather noticed the brochure. I found him looking at it one afternoon, his reading glasses perched on his nose, his hand shaking slightly as he held the page. Your father's already planning, he said quietly. Planning what, Grandpa? He folded the brochure carefully, put it in the recycling bin himself. What people like him always plan, he said. Convenience disguised as care. I didn't understand, not then. My mother called what we were doing more than our share. My grandfather heard her say it. He never forgot. Early in 2024, Grandpa was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Manageable, the cardiologist said. Dr. Helen Yoshida at UC Riverside Medical Center gave him 12 to 24 months with proper medication and monitoring. I drove him to every appointment, helped him understand the prescriptions. Lisinopril, Carvedilol, daily pills that kept his heart beating but couldn't make it young again. He asked me not to tell my father about the prognosis right away. I don't want your father to know yet, he said in the hospital parking lot after the diagnosis. He'll start making plans that aren't his to make. I respected that. I thought he wanted time to process his mortality without Vincent's interference. I didn't know he was buying time to prepare something else entirely. In January of 2025, Grandpa asked if I could drive him to an appointment downtown. He didn't say what kind. I didn't ask. Privacy mattered, especially for a man watching his body fail. I drove him to an office building on Market Street. Brennan and Associates, the sign read. Estate planning attorney. Just need to get some paperwork in order, he said. Shouldn't take long. I sat in the waiting room for 90 minutes, flipped through magazines, checked my phone, texted Nathan about picking up Sophie from school. When Grandpa came out, he looked tired but satisfied. Thank you for the ride, Mija, he said. That was it, no explanation. I didn't push. 3 weeks later, he asked me to come with him to a notary office, said he needed a witness for some documents. I signed where they pointed. Saw legal terms I didn't fully understand. Revocable living trust, advance healthcare directive, financial power of attorney, not just for him, for Grandma too. Grandpa, what's all this? I asked. Just making sure everything's proper, he said. In case something happens to me, your grandmother will need someone she trusts to help with decisions. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The notary was a woman named Rosa Gutierrez. She stamped each page with her official seal, recorded the date and time. 2:14 in the afternoon. I still didn't know what I'd witnessed. Didn't know he was building a fortress. In the weeks that followed, Grandpa seemed lighter, not healthier. His body was still failing, but less burdened. He'd sit in our backyard while Sophie played, watching her with this quiet intensity like he was memorizing her. One evening in early October, he asked me to sit with him in the living room. Nathan had taken Sophie to the park. Grandma was napping. It was just us. He handed me a manila envelope, thick, sealed with packing tape, my name written on the front in his careful handwriting. Pamela, he said, this envelope. Don't open it now. Wait until after I'm gone, and when they try to tell you what's practical, you'll know what to do. Grandpa, what do you mean? His hand was warm on mine, his grip still strong despite everything. You'll understand when the time comes, he said. Just promise me you'll read it when you need it most. I promised. Put the envelope in my dresser drawer, underneath old tax returns and Sophie's baby photos. Tried not to think about what "after I'm gone" meant. Tried not to count how many months the cardiologist had estimated. The label on the envelope read, "For Pamela. Open when they show you who they really are." I didn't understand. I thought it was a goodbye letter. Maybe some final wishes for his funeral. Some memories he wanted preserved. I didn't know it was a battle plan. Thursday, November 20th, 2025. 6:15 in the morning. I woke to silence in a house that was never silent. Went to check on my grandparents, and found my grandmother sitting on the edge of their bed, holding Grandpa's hand, tears running down her face without sound. He'd passed in his sleep. Peaceful, the hospice nurse would later confirm. His heart had simply stopped fighting. I called my father at 6:42. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Dad," I said, "Grandpa's gone." There was a pause. Then, "I'm so sorry, Pamela. Let me take care of the funeral logistics. You've done enough already." That phrase again. Enough already. I didn't argue. I was too numb. The funeral was Saturday, November 22nd. St. Catherine's Catholic Church, on Arlington Avenue, 10 o'clock service, clock. My grandfather had been a Navy veteran, Korean War, though he rarely talked about it. The funeral home arranged military honors. 3 sailors in dress uniforms, a flag ceremony. Taps played on a bugle that made my throat close. Vincent gave the eulogy, talked about Grandpa's work ethic, his dedication to family, his quiet strength. Generic words that could have described anyone. Nothing about the man who taught Sophie to play checkers. Nothing about the grandfather who'd spent his last 2 years in Ardennes, grateful for the space we'd made. I spoke briefly, kept it simple, told one story about Grandpa helping Sophie learn to tie her shoes, his patient hands guiding hers, his soft voice encouraging. That was the man I knew. 80 people came to the service. Afterward, the church hall filled with casseroles and sympathy cards, and people saying he was in a better place now. Vanessa wore black designer clothes and left after an hour. Julian shook hands and made appropriate faces. Patricia cried beautifully, dabbing at mascara that never ran. My grandmother sat in a folding chair, silent and small, while people offered condolences she barely heard. Sunday, the day after the funeral, Vincent and Patricia came to our house. Said they wanted to check on Mom. That's what they called my grandmother when it suited them. Mom. After Grandma went to her room to rest, my father stayed in our cramped living room. "Pam," he said, "we need to discuss Mom's living situation." I looked at him, waited. "This house is too small for long-term elderly care, honey. You've been a saint. But this isn't sustainable. Mom needs professional support now that Dad's gone." "She's not a burden," I said. My mother jumped in, voice soft and reasonable. "No one's saying she is. We're being realistic. You have Sophie to think about. Your job. Nathan's schedule. This is about what's best for everyone." Vincent pulled a brochure from his jacket. Meadowbrook Care Center. The same one from a year ago. "Just take a look," he said. "We've already toured the facility. It's very nice. Professional staff, activities, medical monitoring, much better equipped than a crowded house." He left the brochure on our coffee table like he was doing us a favor. After they left, Nathan picked it up, looked at the glossy photos of smiling elderly people in a sunlit rec room. Monthly cost listed on the back page, $6,800. "They didn't come to ask," he said quietly. "They came to tell. Grandpa just died 2 days ago. They're already planning where to put Grandma." Nathan set the brochure down, looked at me with those steady eyes that had gotten me through student loans and pregnancy scares and a dishwasher we couldn't afford to replace. "Your grandfather saw this coming," he said. I didn't know how right he was. Monday, November 24th, 10 o'clock in the morning. I was making breakfast when Vincent's black Lexus SUV pulled into our driveway. He and Patricia got out. Patricia was carrying a small suitcase I'd never seen before. They walked in without knocking. "Good morning," Vincent said. Too cheerful, too purposeful. "We have an appointment at Meadowbrook at 10:30. Everything's arranged." My grandmother came out of her bedroom confused. She was wearing the blue cardigan I'd given her last Christmas. Her white hair was brushed, but her eyes were lost. Am I going somewhere?" she asked. Patricia moved toward her, voice syrupy and gentle. "Just for a visit, Mom, to see if you like it." "A visit?" I looked at the suitcase in Patricia's hand. You have her clothes packed. We're just being prepared, my mother said. Come on, Mom. Let's get you in the car. My grandmother looked at me. I saw the question in her eyes, the fear, the confusion about why her family was suddenly in a hurry. Sophie appeared in the hallway, still in her pajamas with the unicorns on them. Watched everything with 6-year-old eyes that understood more than adults wanted to believe. Grandma? Sophie said. Her voice was small. Are you leaving? I don't know, Pequeña, Grandma said softly. Sophie started crying, quiet tears running down her face. She ran to Grandma and hugged her legs. Vincent already had his hand on Grandma's elbow, steering her toward the door. I grabbed the envelope from my bag. I'd been carrying it everywhere since the funeral, not knowing why, and followed them outside. I'll follow you, I said. My voice came out flat, cold. That's not necessary, Vincent said. I'm following you. 15 minutes later, we pulled into the parking lot of Meadowbrook Care Center. The building was new construction trying to look residential. Beige stucco, terracotta roof tiles, beds of wood chips with strategic succulents. The lobby smelled like industrial air freshener attempting to mask institutional cleaning products. The woman at the front desk smiled. Name tag read Carol Jenkins, admissions director. Mr. Perez, she said to my father, right on time. Let's get your mother checked in. Sophie held my hand. Grandma sat in one of the lobby chairs, that small suitcase beside her like she was waiting for a bus to somewhere she didn't want to go. Vincent was already filling out intake forms at the desk. Patricia hovered, making encouraging noises. Carol Jenkins came over with a clipboard. Professional kindness in her eyes. Mrs. Perez, she said to my grandmother, we're so glad you're joining our community. Let me show you to your room. My grandmother's voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. Have I been such a burden? The question broke something in my chest. This woman who'd raised 2 children, who'd stayed married for 60 years, who'd knitted blankets for every grandchild and great-grandchild, who'd made space in her heart for everyone, reduced to asking if her existence was too much trouble. Sophie squeezed my hand tighter, whispered, Mommy, don't let them take Grandma. I knelt beside Grandma's chair, took both her hands. Sophie pressed against my side. You're not a burden, Grandma, I said. You never were. My father didn't even look up from his paperwork, and that's when I remembered. The envelope, 10 months old, sealed, waiting. Some instinct had made me grab it this morning. I reached into my purse, felt the manila envelope, pulled it out. My grandmother watched me break the seal. Vincent glanced over, saw what I was holding, and his pen paused on the intake form. Pamela, what is that? He asked. I didn't answer. I was reading the first page. Multiple legal documents, all notarized, all dated February 2025. First, Revocable Living Trust. Grantor, Raymond Perez. Beneficiary, Eleanor Perez. Successor, Trustee, Pamela Marie Perez. Second, Advance Healthcare Directive for Eleanor Perez. Healthcare Agent, Pamela Marie Perez. Third, Durable Financial Power of Attorney for Eleanor Perez. Agent, Pamela Marie Perez. My grandfather hadn't just protected himself, he'd protected Grandma. He'd made sure that when he died, I would have full legal authority to make healthcare and financial decisions for her. Ms. Perez? Carol Jenkins was looking at me now, professional antennae up. Is everything all right? I stood, handed her the documents. My grandfather created a trust for my grandmother before he died, I said. My voice was steady. I'm the successor trustee. He also had my grandmother sign a healthcare directive and financial power of attorney appointing me as her agent. These give me legal authority over her care decisions and finances. Carol took the documents, read them carefully, looked at the notary seals, the dates, the signatures, all properly executed. This is all in order, she said. She looked at Vincent. Sir, I'll need the legal agent's consent for placement. According to these documents, that's your daughter. Vincent's face went tight. That's ridiculous. I'm her son. Carol's voice remained professional. Mr. Perez, according to these properly executed legal documents, your daughter has authority over your mother's healthcare and financial decisions. California law is very clear on this. We cannot proceed without her consent. My father was sick when he signed those, Vincent said. His voice had an edge now. The reasonable mask was slipping. I pulled out my phone, pulled up Dr. Yoshida's contact information. February 14th, Grandpa had a full capacity evaluation, I said. His doctor documented complete mental competence. Would you like me to call her right now? There was more in the envelope. I pulled out the next document, a copy of a property deed. County recorded. Riverside County Recorder's Office stamp clearly visible. Dated February 18th, 2025. The house my grandparents had lived in for 40 years. The house worth $680,000, according to the most recent tax assessment, had been transferred to joint tenancy. Eleanor Perez and Pamela Marie Perez, with right of survivorship. Patricia made a small sound. Vincent's jaw worked. I looked at Carol Jenkins. We won't be completing the intake. I'm taking my grandmother home. Of course, Carol said. She handed the paperwork back to Vincent, half completed, useless now. I helped Grandma to her feet. Sophie grabbed the small suitcase. We walked toward the parking lot, leaving my parents standing in that lobby with its fake plants and motivational posters about aging with dignity. Vincent followed us outside, caught my arm in the parking lot. Pamela, we need to talk about this. I turned, looked at him, really looked. No, I said. We don't. I pulled out the property deed again, showed him the county stamp. The house you thought you'd inherit? Grandpa transferred it to joint tenancy, Grandma and me, recorded with the county in February. It's not your inheritance anymore, Dad. Grandpa made sure of it. My father went white. That's impossible, he said. We'll contest this, all of it. Dad was manipulated. By his estate attorney? By a notary? By the county recorder? I said. Good luck with that. Patricia appeared beside him, saw the deed. Her hand went to her throat. Your grandfather didn't know what he was doing, she said. Her voice had lost all its sweetness. He was sick. He was confused. He knew exactly what he was doing, I said. He knew you'd try this. That's why he prepared months in advance. That's why everything was notarized by multiple witnesses. That's why Dr. Yoshida documented his full mental capacity. I got Grandma and Sophie into my car, started the engine, watched Vincent and Patricia standing in the Meadowbrook parking lot, their careful plan dissolving in the November sun. My grandmother reached for my hand from the back seat. Mija, she said, what just happened? Grandpa made sure you had a choice, I said. And you're choosing home. Sophie twisted around from her booster seat. Grandma, you can have my room again. I like the den. I drove away without looking back. But I knew this wasn't over. I had the legal authority to block the nursing home. I had proof that I owned half the house. But I didn't know yet what else was in that envelope. We left the nursing home behind. The fight was just starting. That evening, after Sophie was asleep and Grandma was resting, I sat at our kitchen table with Nathan and went through the rest of the envelope. Bank statements. From my grandfather's account, printed, highlighted, organized by year. March 15th, 2021. Withdrawal, $18,000. Memo line, loan to Vincent, business expansion. January 30th, 2022. Withdrawal, $25,000. Memo line, loan to Vincent, equipment purchase. June 12th, 2022. Withdrawal, $38,000. Memo line, loan to Patricia, boutique investment. April 8th, 2023. Withdrawal, $19,000. Memo line, loan to Vincent, cash flow assistance. September 22nd, 2023. Withdrawal, $25,000. Memo line, wedding gift, Vanessa. Nathan read over my shoulder. Did the math before I could. $125,000, he said quietly. I flipped through the rest of the statements, looking for repayment records, deposits, anything that showed my family had paid back even a fraction of what they'd borrowed. Nothing. They bled him dry, Nathan said, and then tried to warehouse Grandma so no one would ask questions. If you've ever sacrificed while others disappeared, hit like right now and comment, "Double damages for elder abusers." There was more in the envelope, pages I hadn't reached yet. But these bank statements, these were the receipts. The proof that Practical had never been about Grandma's well-being. It had been about controlling assets they'd already been stealing from for years. I pulled out the next document, the trust agreement itself, typed, official, notarized. Raymond Perez, Revocable Living Trust. Created February 12, 2025. Grantor, Raymond Perez. Beneficiary, Eleanor Perez. Successor trustee, Pamela Marie Perez. Corpus, $435,000. My grandfather had protected what was left. After all the loans that were never repaid, after all the cash flow assistance and wedding gifts and business investments, he'd taken what remained and locked it in a trust. For Grandma, with me as the only person who could access it on her behalf. I read the permitted expenses list: in-home care, medical costs, housing improvements, quality of life enhancements, and a specific restriction that made my throat tight. Funds shall not be used for institutional care placement unless the beneficiary explicitly requests such placement in writing with independent legal counsel confirmation. He'd made sure she could never be forced into a nursing home for financial convenience. Nathan put his hand on my shoulder. He didn't just protect her, he funded her freedom. And then I found the letter. 8 pages. Blue ink. My grandfather's handwriting. The careful cursive of a man who'd learned to write before computers, who still sent birthday cards in the mail, who believed words mattered enough to write them by hand. I started reading. Pamela, my dear granddaughter, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're reading this now, it means they've done exactly what I feared. Let me tell you what I know, what I've seen, and what I've prepared for you. The letter was dated October 10th, 2025, a month before he died. The pages were numbered, organized, methodical. This wasn't the rambling of a confused old man. This was testimony, evidence, a case built paragraph by paragraph. They will say I was confused near the end, he wrote. So let me be clear. I'm writing this on October 10th, 2025. Today is Sophie's first day of first grade. I remember watching you pack her lunch this morning. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, the cookies your grandmother made. Your wedding anniversary was 73 days ago. August 3rd, 2018. Nathan proposed on the beach at sunset, and you came home with sand in your hair and joy in your voice. Your grandmother's birthday is March 22nd. She'll be 82 next year, if God is willing. Nathan drives a 2016 Ford F-150 blue with a dent in the left rear fender from when he backed into the mailbox last spring. You teach second grade at Riverside Elementary. These are not the memories of a confused man. Nathan read over my shoulder again. I felt him tense beside me. He built a defense against exactly what your father was going to claim, he said. I kept reading. July 18th, 2025. I was sitting in your den, resting after lunch. Your father didn't know I could hear from there. He was in your kitchen, on his phone with someone at Meadowbrook Care Center. He said, "We'll need availability for late fall. My father won't last much longer, and we'll need the suite ready." I wasn't even gone yet, Pamela, and he was already making arrangements to put your grandmother away. The letter continued, page after page of dated observations, conversations my grandfather had overheard, things my father and mother had said when they thought he wasn't listening or wouldn't remember. August 10th. I heard Patricia telling Vanessa on the phone that once I was gone, The house money would be theirs to manage. She said it like it was already decided, like your grandmother's home was already theirs to sell. September 3rd. Your father sat in your living room and told me I was becoming too much for you to handle. He said it with such concern, like he cared. But I'd just heard you tell Nathan the night before how grateful you were to have us. Your father was building a narrative to justify what he wanted to do. I decided to build a defense. My hands were shaking. September 15th. I met with Arthur Brennan today. A good attorney, honest. I told him everything. He drew up the documents. Revocable living trust, advance healthcare directive for your grandmother, financial power of attorney for her, property transfer. Everything to make sure your grandmother would be protected. Everything to make sure you would have the authority to protect her. The letter ended with instructions. Clear, specific, loving. Pamela, you're the only one I trust. Not because you're perfect, because you showed up. You made space when you had none. You gave love when it was inconvenient. That's what family is. Protect your grandmother. Don't let them rewrite what love looks like. Use these papers, fight if you have to, and know that I'm proud of you. He'd signed it Grandpa Raymond, the way he always signed birthday cards. At the bottom, a postscript. P.S. Tell Sophie her checkers game is getting better. I wish I could see her win her first match. I put the letter down. Looked at Nathan through tears I couldn't control anymore. He knew, I said. He knew everything they were going to do, and he spent his last months building a legal fortress to stop them. Nathan pulled me close, let me cry into his shoulder. He knew what they'd do, he said quietly, and he knew you were the only one who'd stop them. He didn't write me a goodbye. He wrote me ammunition and permission to use it. Tuesday morning, I called the number at the bottom of the trust document. Brennan and Associates. A receptionist answered, professional and warm. When I gave my name, she put me through immediately. Ms. Perez, Arthur Brennan said, I've been expecting your call. You knew? Your grandfather briefed me. He said you'd need guidance when the time came. I'm very sorry for your loss. I explained what had happened at Meadowbrook, the attempted placement, the confrontation, my father's threats to contest. Arthur Brennan listened. Then he spoke with the calm certainty of someone who'd seen this script before. Pamela, your grandfather was one of the most prepared clients I've ever had. He anticipated every challenge, every argument your father might make, every emotional manipulation your mother might try. The trust is ironclad. The healthcare directive and power of attorney for your grandmother are properly executed. The property transfer was recorded through official channels. You're in a very strong legal position. My father's talking about contesting, I said. Let him try. Your grandfather's mental capacity is thoroughly documented across multiple months. Dr. Yoshida's evaluation from February is bulletproof. The notarization spans several weeks, proving this wasn't a rushed decision or a moment of confusion. And frankly, if your father pushes this, we have grounds for elder financial abuse claims under California's Elder Abuse and Dependent Adult Civil Protection Act. Those bank statements your grandfather included? That's evidence of systematic financial exploitation. We could pursue restitution plus double damages. The words hung in the air. Elder financial abuse, double damages, real legal consequences. I don't want to destroy my family, I said. You're not destroying anything, Pamela. You're protecting your grandmother. There's a difference. But your father needs to know the stakes. If he contests, we'll file a civil claim for the $125,000 plus double damages for financial abuse. That's $375,000 he could owe. I suspect once his attorney explains that, he'll back down. I thanked him, hung up, sat in my car in the school parking lot before work, hands still shaking from the weight of what I was carrying. My phone rang 6 times over the course of that Tuesday, all from my father. I didn't answer, listened to each voicemail, The first, Pamela, we need to talk reasonably about this, call me back. The second, this is getting ridiculous. Dad wasn't in his right mind, you know that. We can work this out. The third, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Just call me. The fourth, anger creeping in. Pamela, answer your phone, this is serious. The fifth, pleading. Your mother is devastated. Is this really what you want? To tear this family apart? The sixth, late evening. Fine. If this is how you want to handle it, we'll see you Thursday. Thanksgiving. You can explain yourself to the whole family then. 6 calls. 6 different tactics. Not once did he ask about Grandma. Not once did he acknowledge what he'd tried to do. It was all about control. About getting me to back down. About preserving whatever story he'd told himself about being a good son. That afternoon, while Sophie was at school, my mother showed up at our house. I answered the door. Patricia stood there in her boutique clothes, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, tears already flowing. Pamela, I can't believe you're doing this. She pushed past me into the living room. My grandmother was in her room, resting. Nathan was at work. Mom, you need to leave. Your father's heartbroken, Patricia said. His own daughter accusing him of, I don't even know what you're accusing him of. Grandpa was confused, honey. You took advantage of a sick old man. Stop. I kept my voice level. Cold. Stop crying. He wasn't confused. He was clear. He knew exactly what you and Dad were planning. That's why he did what he did. We were trying to help. You were trying to get rid of her, I said. 2 days after the funeral, Mom. 2 days. You couldn't even wait a week. You had her suitcase packed. You had intake forms filled out. Don't tell me you were trying to help. Patricia's tears dried up fast. Her face hardened. Then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her checkbook, started writing. $50,000, she said. To make this go away. You keep the trust, fine. But we need you to sign a release stating Dad and I aren't liable for any claims, that we acted in good faith. She tore off the check, held it out to me. I stared at it. $50,000. More money than Nathan and I had in savings. Enough to fix the dishwasher, replace the car, maybe even make a down payment on a house. You're trying to buy my silence, I said. I'm trying to keep this family together, Patricia said. Take it, Pamela. Be smart. I took the check, looked at it, looked at my mother. Then I tore it in half, and again, let the pieces fall on our coffee table. Get out of my house, I said. She left, but not before throwing one last barb. You're going to regret this. That evening, a text from Vanessa. I don't know who you've become, Pam. Grandpa's barely gone and you're already fighting over money. Grandma deserves professional care, not to be a pawn in whatever game you're playing. Shame on you. I read it twice, started to respond, then deleted my draft. There was no point. They'd made up their minds. Nathan found me in the bathroom 20 minutes later, crying quietly with the door closed so Sophie wouldn't hear. Patricia tried to bribe me, I said. $50,000 to sign away any legal claims against them. Nathan's jaw tightened. What did you say? I tore up the check. He knelt beside where I sat on the closed toilet lid, took my hands. Your grandfather trusted you, he said. Not them. There's a reason. And Arthur Brennan said if they push, you can file for double damages under elder abuse law. $375,000 they'd owe. That's why Patricia brought a check. They're scared. I thought about Sophie giving up her room. About Nathan installing grab bars with money we didn't have. About 2 years of showing up when no one else did. They had space, I said. They had money. They just didn't have love. Wednesday night, November 26th, the night before Thanksgiving. Sophie was asleep. Grandma was in her room. Nathan sat beside me on our worn couch. I read my grandfather's letter in full for the first time. All 8 pages. His handwriting looked like him, steady, clear. unflinching. The defensive line about his memory, the specific dates, the details about our lives, hit even harder on the second reading. He'd built this protection knowing exactly what Vincent would claim, knowing that confused would be the first weapon they'd use. But it was the observations that destroyed me, the things he'd witnessed. July 18th, 2025. I was sitting in the den. Vincent didn't know I could hear. He was on the phone with Meadowbrook, asking about availability for late fall. I wasn't even gone yet. August 10th. Patricia told Vanessa the house money would be theirs to manage, said it like it was already decided. September 3rd. Your father told me I was becoming a burden on you. He said it with concern, like he cared. But I'd heard you tell Nathan the night before how grateful you were to have us. Page after page of evidence that my family had been planning this for months. That the nursing home wasn't a sudden necessity, it was a strategy. And then the final instruction, the words that gave me permission to fight. Pamela, you're the only one I trust. Not because you're perfect, because you showed up. You made space when you had none. You gave love when it was inconvenient. That's what family is. Protect your grandmother. Don't let them rewrite what love looks like. Use these papers. Fight if you have to. And know that I'm proud of you. Grandpa Raymond. The postscript about Sophie's checkers made my voice crack when I read it aloud to Nathan. P.S. Tell Sophie her checkers game is getting better. I wish I could see her win her first match. He was dying. He was scared. And he spent his last weeks documenting conversations, meeting with lawyers, building legal structures to protect the woman he'd loved for 60 years, because he knew what practical really meant to people like my father. Nathan put his arm around me. He didn't write you a goodbye. He wrote you ammunition. And permission to use it, I said. Thursday, November 27th, 2025. Thanksgiving. My parents were hosting. They'd called Tuesday night to confirm we were still coming, voice tight with warning. The whole family will be there. We can discuss this like adults. I knew what that meant. Public pressure, emotional manipulation, extended family as witnesses to my unreasonable behavior. But I had my own plans. We arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Vincent and Patricia's house in the nicer part of Riverside. 4 bedrooms, pool, manicured lawn. The irony wasn't lost on me. Cars in the driveway, my father's Lexus, Vanessa and Julian's Tesla, and 2 more vehicles I recognized. My Uncle Thomas, Vincent's younger brother, and his wife Rachel, and my Aunt Karen, Patricia's sister, with her husband Dan. Extended family, witnesses. Perfect. We walked in. The house smelled like turkey and performance. The dining room table was set with Patricia's good china. Football played on the TV in the den. Folding chairs had been brought out to accommodate everyone. Karen saw us first, came over, hugged Grandma carefully. Oh, Elena, it's so good to see you. How are you settling into your new place? Grandma looked confused. I'm still at Pamela's. Karen glanced at Patricia. Oh, I thought... We're still working out the details, Patricia said. Fake smile, tight voice. Vincent appeared from the kitchen, saw us. His face was carefully neutral. Glad you could make it, he said. We moved through the awkward small talk. Thomas and Rachel asking about Sophie's school, Dan complimenting Nathan's truck, Vanessa and Julian in the corner, not making eye contact, everyone pretending this was a normal Thanksgiving, everyone pretending there wasn't a bomb in my purse. At 2:30, Vincent stood at the head of the table, raised his glass. Before we eat, I want to say something, he said. We've lost someone important this year. Dad would have wanted us to stay united, to remember that family takes care of each other, to honor the lessons he taught us about loyalty and love. He looked directly at me. Let's make sure we honor that. Today and going forward. The implied threat was clear. Get in line, remember your place, be reasonable. I set down my water glass, stood up. Before we eat, I said, I need to say something too. The room went quiet. Sophie looked up at me. Nathan's hand found mine under the table. I placed the manila envelope on the table, between the turkey and the mashed potatoes. Dad wanted family to stay united, I said. So let's be honest about what that means. Grandpa spent his last months making sure Grandma would be protected. Not from strangers. From you. Vincent's face went red. Pamela, this isn't the time. Actually, Dad, Thanksgiving is exactly the time. We're supposed to be grateful. Let's be grateful for people who tell the truth. I pulled out the trust document, placed it on the table. Grandpa created a revocable living trust for Grandma. $435,000. I'm the successor trustee. He also had Grandma sign a healthcare directive and financial power of attorney appointing me. February 2025. All notarized, all legal. This is why the nursing home couldn't proceed without my consent. Karen leaned forward, picked up the document, read the notary's seal. I pulled out the property deed next. The house you thought you'd inherit? Grandpa transferred it to joint tenancy, Grandma and me, recorded with Riverside County in February. It's not your inheritance anymore, Dad. It never was. Thomas, Vincent's brother, looked at Vincent. Vinny, is this true? Vincent's jaw worked. Dad was sick. He didn't understand. He understood perfectly. I pulled out the bank statements, started reading. March 2021, $18,000, business loan, never repaid. I placed the statement on the table. January 2022, $25,000, equipment purchase, never repaid. Another statement. June 2022, $38,000 to Mom for her boutique, never repaid. Patricia made a small sound. Karen was staring at her sister. April 2023, $19,000. September 2023, $25,000 for Vanessa's wedding. I stacked the statements like cards. $125,000 over 3 years, borrowed, never repaid. Rachel, Thomas's wife, an accountant, picked up the statements, started reading. Her face went hard. These withdrawals, she said slowly, that's $125,000, and there's no record of repayment. None, I said, and when Grandpa locked the remaining money in a trust to protect Grandma, they tried to warehouse her in a nursing home, 2 days after his funeral. Thomas looked at Vincent, really looked at him. You borrowed that much from Dad and never paid it back? They were family loans, Vincent said. His voice was defensive now. Family helping family. Loans get repaid, Uncle Thomas, I said. Vanessa finally spoke. Grandpa was confused when he signed those documents. He didn't know what he was doing. I pulled out the letter, my grandfather's handwriting visible to anyone who wanted to see. Let me read you something, I said. This is dated October 10th, 2025, 1 month before he died. I read the defensive paragraph aloud, about Sophie's first day of school, about my wedding anniversary, about Nathan's truck, about specific detailed memories that proved sharp cognition. These are not the memories of a confused man, I finished, reading Grandpa's own words. Vanessa went silent. I kept reading. July 18th, 2025. Vincent on the phone with Meadowbrook Care Center. We'll need availability for late fall. Grandpa wasn't even gone yet. I looked at Karen, Patricia's sister. August 10th. Mom told Vanessa that once Dad was gone, the house money would be theirs to manage. Karen's face changed. Pat, you tried to put your mother in a home 2 days after the funeral? It was practical, Patricia said. Her voice cracked. We were thinking long term. You couldn't even wait a week? Karen's voice rose. I kept reading. September 3rd. Dad told Grandpa he was becoming too much for me to handle, but I told Nathan the night before how grateful I was to have them. Dad was building a narrative. I looked around the table. Grandpa knew what you were planning, so he spent his last months with an estate attorney, creating protections, documenting everything, making sure Grandma would have a choice. Thomas stood up, pushed back from the table. Vinny, Dad deserved better than this. And so does Mom, Rachel added quietly. And then my grandmother spoke. She'd been quiet through the whole thing, sitting in her chair in the blue cardigan I'd given her, watching her family tear itself apart. But now she stood. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Vincent, she said, you're my son. My father looked at her. I changed your diapers. I sat with you when you had nightmares. I made your school lunches for 12 years. I was there when you started your business, when you bought your first house. Her voice stayed steady. And you were going to put me in a room with strangers and call it practical? The silence was absolute. Pamela has a tiny house, Grandma continued, but she made room. You have a big house, but you had none. Sophie started crying, quiet tears running down her face. She pulled something from her backpack, a small blanket she'd made at school, purple and silver yarn, messy stitches. She walked to Grandma and handed it to her. I made this for you, Grandma, Sophie said through tears, so you know you're loved. Grandma took the blanket, started crying too, pulled Sophie into a hug. Thomas pulled out his wallet, threw 2 20s on the table for his portion of the meal. I think we should go, he said to Rachel. He looked at Vincent. You need to figure out what kind of man you want to be, Vinny. Dad knew. That's why he did what he did. Karen hugged Grandma. Elena, if you need anything, you call me, not them. She looked at Patricia. I'm so disappointed in you. They left. The door closed behind them. Vanessa and Julian stood. We should go too, Vanessa said quietly. They walked out without another word, leaving just Vincent, Patricia, me, Nathan, Sophie, and Grandma in a dining room that smelled like turkey and failure. Vincent tried one more time. We can still contest this, he said. All of it. We'll prove Dad was manipulated. I looked at him. This man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd come to my high school graduation, who'd walked me down the aisle when I married Nathan. This man who'd become someone I didn't recognize. Go ahead, Dad, I said. Attorney Brennan is ready, and if you push, we'll file elder financial abuse claims under California law. That's the $125,000 you took, plus double damages for financial exploitation, $375,000 total. Is that what you want? A public record of how you stole from your dying father and tried to warehouse your mother? His face went white. Patricia was crying for real now. Not the pretty tears from earlier. Real, ugly, broken crying, shame crying. I stood, helped Grandma to her feet. Nathan picked up Sophie and her blanket. At the door, I turned back. Grandpa loved you, Dad. He just loved Grandma more. And he knew I did too. That's why he chose me. Vincent's voice was broken. I'm still your father. Then act like Grandpa's son, I said. We left. The turkey went cold, but the truth stayed warm. The week after Thanksgiving was quiet. No calls from Vincent. No visits from Patricia. No texts from Vanessa. On December 1st, Arthur Brennan sent me an email. Your father's attorney contacted me. They're not contesting. The threat of elder abuse claims was enough. The documents will stand. Everything your grandfather put in place is secure. Just like that, the war was over. The war. I'd won by default, not because Vincent had seen the light, but because the law was clearer than his excuses and the financial consequences were too steep. The trust stayed intact. $435,000 for Grandma's care, with me as trustee. The house ownership was undisputed. The healthcare directive and power of attorney were recognized. By early December, we'd established a new routine. Rosa Delgado, a home health aide in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands, came 3 times a week. 12 hours total, paid from the trust. She'd help Grandma with bathing, medications, light exercises. They'd sit in our backyard and talk in Spanish about old telenovelas and grandchildren and the weather. It cost $1,680 a month. The trust could sustain that for years, decades, if we were careful. Grandma helped Sophie with homework at the kitchen table. Nathan built her a small garden box in the backyard on December 10th. Cost him $180 in materials. He planted tomatoes and herbs, things she could tend to. One evening, Sophie asked the question I'd been dreading. Mommy, will we see Grandpa Vincent for Christmas? I was tucking her into bed. The glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling, the ones Nathan had put up when she gave up her room, glowed softly in the dark. I don't think so, baby. Is it because of the papers? Smart girl, 6 years old, and she understood more than I wanted her to. It's because some people forget what family means, I said. She thought about that. Then, Grandpa Raymond remembered. Yes, baby, he did. I miss him. Me too. Nathan found me crying in the bathroom later that night. Sat on the edge of the tub while I sat on the closed toilet, trying to be quiet so Sophie wouldn't hear. I lost my parents, I said. No, he said. They lost you. Big difference. And from what Arthur said, you could have filed for those double damages. $375,000. You chose not to. You gave them a chance to back down quietly. That's more grace than they deserved. He was right. I'd done everything I could to preserve the relationship, to make space, to show up, to love. They'd chosen pride over connection, money over meaning, convenience over commitment. Christmas was small that year, just us and Grandma. Thomas and Rachel invited us to their house for Christmas Eve, which felt like vindication and sadness mixed together. Karen sent a card with a $100 gift certificate to Target and a note that said, "For Sophie, love you all." Vanessa sent nothing. Vincent and Patricia sent nothing. We put up a 5-foot tree in the living room. Sophie decorated it with construction paper ornaments she'd made at school and old decorations from when Nathan and I first got married. Grandma sat in her chair, knitting a blanket for Sophie in colors Sophie had chosen herself, purple and silver and midnight blue. On December 18th, I came home from work to find Sophie back in her room. The den was empty. Grandma, I called. She was in the living room, knitting. Sophie's room? I asked. I told her she'd shared enough, Grandma said. Little girls need their own rooms for their dreams. I'll be right down the hall. Sophie appeared from her doorway, grinning. The glow-in-the-dark stars were back on her ceiling. Her stuffed animals were arranged on her bed. She'd chosen to move back, and Grandma had encouraged her. The den became Grandma's space. Nathan set up her sewing corner, good light from the window, a comfortable chair, everything she needed. Both of them were happy. I found my grandfather's reading glasses in a drawer one evening while looking for batteries, held them for a long moment, put them on Grandma's side table. She used them sometimes to read or sew. A small continuity, his presence still in the house, in the choices we made, in the love that had built protection. He'd be so proud of you, Mija, Grandma said one night. I hope so. I know so. He told me you were the strongest of all of us. He was right. Mid-December, evening. Our cramped living room that had somehow become enough. Sophie doing homework at the kitchen table, tongue stuck out in concentration. Nathan fixing a squeaky cabinet door. Grandma knitting. Me grading spelling tests. Small, simple, peaceful. This was what practical really meant. Not convenient, just present. I thought about Vincent's mansion. 4 bedrooms, pool, space for everything except love. About Vanessa's Newport Beach house with its empty guest rooms and its careful distance from anything that might require sacrifice. They had room. They had money. They'd chosen neither. We had 1,200 square feet and creaking floors and a dishwasher that still didn't work. And we'd made space. Twice. My grandmother was safe. Sophie had learned what family meant by watching her parents choose love over convenience. Nathan had proven every single day that marriage was about showing up, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And my grandfather, gone but still present, had given me the weapons I needed to protect what mattered. The legal documents were filed away in our fireproof safe now: the trust agreement, the healthcare directive, the power of attorney, the property deed, the bank statements, the 8-page letter in his careful handwriting. I didn't need them anymore. The war was over, but I kept them anyway. Evidence. Proof. A paper trail of love that had outlasted death and defeated greed. One evening in late December, I was putting away dishes when I found myself thinking about that word again. Practical. Vincent had used it to mean efficient, professional, realistic, a way to frame cruelty as wisdom. But practical, I'd learned, meant something else entirely. It meant making space in a cramped house because someone needed a home. It meant a 6-year-old sleeping in a den without complaint. It meant grab bars installed with money you didn't have. It meant showing up, day after day, with no reward except knowing you'd chosen love. That was practical. Everything else was just convenient. I looked around our kitchen, at Nathan drying dishes beside me, at Sophie and Grandma at the table, working on a puzzle together. At this life we'd built in less than 1,200 square feet. The people with the biggest house had no room for her. The people with the least space made room twice. My grandfather knew the difference between practical and love. He made sure I had the proof to show everyone else. And when the fight came, that proof became power. Not just legal protection, but moral authority. The kind that makes people back down, the kind that changes what's possible. In the end, we recovered everything. The trust stayed intact, the house stayed ours, and Arthur Brennan's quiet mention of double damages, $375,000 in potential liability, made sure my father's lawyers advised him to walk away. Proof was enough, but love was everything. Share this with any caregiver you know who's fighting for someone the world calls a burden. And if you want the trust template framework that saved my grandmother, the exact structure my grandfather used, I'll drop the link next week. Hit that notification bell, because documentation isn't just paperwork, it's power. And sometimes, it's the only thing standing between the people you love and the people who see them as inconvenient. The one who shows up gets everything. The ones who disappear get nothing. That's not just what happened to my family. That's the law, and my grandfather made sure I knew how to use it.